Hey, what's up you guys? It's me, Eclectic Witch, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, feel free to subscribe and like this video. This video is going to be specifically on psychic vampirism, and you're going to learn all about what exactly is a psychic vampire, how do they feed and influence others, and how to best protect yourself against these individuals. So we're just going to move right on into it. So, a psychic vampire is simply just an individual who feeds off the energy of others. And this can be done intentionally, so directly, or it could be subconsciously. These people may not be aware that they're feeding off you, and these people are actually most likely friends, family, individuals who are not aware of their influence. But like I said, it can be done intentionally as well. The whole mechanics of this is that this is someone who feeds off your energy. And typically when this happens, you just feel drained. So you can go to a social event or hang out with a friend or a peer, and you'll go back home and you'll feel very, very drained. And this can be a physical sensation, or maybe you're mentally or emotionally drained and you just feel that you had the life or essence of you sucked out. That is the most prominent way of knowing if you are a victim of psychic vampirism. And we're going to talk all about how do they feed and influence others. And I actually have notes for this video I wrote down in my own this is my own personal book. I wanted to make sure I had everything laid out for you guys. So if you see me looking off camera, I'm going to be looking to this book just because I want to make sure I don't leave any details out. So let's move right into it. So energy vampires, they are usually attracted to you because they unconsciously have the desire to resolve some deeper issue within their psyches, within themselves, and they perceive you ultimately as the solution to this problem, meaning that they typically have like some type of hole inside of them, some emptiness inside them that they need to fill, and they can subconsciously or consciously want to use your energy to fill that void within themselves. And it's best to be kind to these individuals, but also be aware of their influence against you, and don't be afraid to draw healthy boundaries for yourself. Because people, they're always like, well, if they're doing this, maybe they need my help. But you have to keep in mind that, just because someone had trauma within themselves in their past, or they're battling something within themselves, it doesn't always mean you have to heal them. It's ultimately someone else's role. It's very important for someone to ultimately want to work on themselves and heal on themselves, and you can help them, but only if they want that help. Now, an energy vampire can never actually steal energy from you unless we consciously or unconsciously give them the permit or permission to do so. Energy vampires, they prey on others because they're typically just in pain, and their behavior is a disguised cry for help. However, the important thing to remember is that you are not responsible for resolving their issues. While you can offer help to an energy vampire, it is ultimately their responsibility to sort out their struggles and healing. And this is very important to empaths. We empaths, we're very sensitive individuals, and we can typically feel the pain and suffering and emotions and sometimes even thoughts of others. But it's important to realize that you have to also be healthy for yourself. You have to set those boundaries. And like I said, I'm going to be telling you guys how to best protect yourself against these individuals. But I think it's important to understand how exactly they feed off of us, so you know how to best protect yourself against these individuals. So there are typically 5 different ways that psychic vampires like to feed. This is called ambient feeding, surface feeding, contact feeding, deep feeding, and long distance feeding. I'm going to go through each of those. So ambient feedings. This is the one way that the psychic vampires feed. It's relatively harmless and it's the least troublesome for them to do. And ambient feeding is typically done at a large public event, like a cafeteria or at a social event, whatever. And it's basically when psychic vampires, they sense the energy of a crowd. And they feel the energy that is just floating around, and in their minds it's just hanging there, free for the taking. So if the crowd is very pumped up, like at a concert, and that's the type of energy that they will receive. So if the crowd is more serious, like at a library, or reserved or whatever, like a public class, whatever, then they get that type of flavor. So it really depends on the energy of the crowd with what energy they're going to be receiving from them. So they tend to focus on the energy floating around and draw that ambient or surrounding energy right into themselves. Now, a deep feeding. This is not something to be entered casually. It's a type of feeding that's only supposed to occur with the permission of an energy donor, someone that's willing to give their energy away, and anything else is basically a sign of psychic rape. As you would imagine, this is the type of a deep energy feed is typically performed in private in an intimate setting where the psychic vampire is literally feeding off the very essence of their willing donor, their life force, their chi, whatever you want to call it. It is believed that the donor experiences a rush when they feed, but afterwards, the energy donor, their natural defenses will be very low, and the donor will feel very drained and tired eventually. In other words, they can't keep donating their energy in deep feedings again and again and again without some type of rest or recuperation in between, or else the willing donor may experience some unfortunate physical side effects. And this could be energy burnout or energy overkill. They basically would just feel very drained, and in very worst cases, the individual can actually become sick. Sometimes this type of consensual deep feeding is an energy exchange, not unlike tantric magic, where both partners are both mutual consent. They give their own personal energies toward a specific magical goal. This requires an amazing amount of concentration, not only for the coordinating of the energy release, but because most of us are more than a little distracted during our most intimate moments. So this is one of the most intense, deep feedings. It's a deep feeding. So now we're going to go through surface feeding. This is the most basic ploy of an energy vampire. Basically, it's the sneaky trick where it can occur from a distance of a few feet or even further away. The surface feeding happens when an uninvited psychic vamp selects a target. They'll select a person, and then they'll visualize and create an unwelcome metaphysical link straight from their target straight into themselves through the person's aura. And once the link is established, the psychic vampire can focus and visualize the other energies streaming out from the victim right into themselves. And these links are often described as tendrils, energy cords, whatever you want to call it. And this link or tentacle is not physically seen through the eye, but it's seen through the astral plane. So that's typically how psychic vampires eat, whether it be a personal encounter or long distance through a crowd, whatever. Psychic vampires, they feed off that metaphysical psychic link, the etheric cord, or a tentacle, whatever, tendril, whatever you want to call it. The energy travels from the psychic vampire into the target, and then they focus on the energy that they want to absorb, and they pull it through themselves, through that cord, that tentacle, that tendril, into themselves. So now we're going to talk about a long distance feeding. This is typically when an energy vampire, the psychic vampire, it takes the most concentration to do this and the most energy, so it's not ideal for them. But typically, they visualize their target. This is once they have an energy signature to lock down on with that individual. And they will focus on that person and their energy, focus on that psychic link, that cord, and they'll pull the energy through them. And like I said, this is long distance, so this can occur from a few miles to even across states. But like I said, this takes the most concentration energy for psychic vampires to work through. So it's not the ideal, but it is another way that they can ultimately feed. So, the last way that psychic vampires they tend to feed is contact feeding, and it's exactly how it sounds. It could be them simply laying a hand on you, or giving you a hug, or being in your presence. And they best do this when they're touching a minor chakra point. It's the fastest and easiest way for them to feed off you. So it could be an individual, they'll put their hand like on your arm, and when your minor chakra points is here, in your inner elbow, I would say, like they'll just put their hand on you, like trying to casually talk to you or something, or comfort you, whatever, and they'll initiate this physical contact to pull the energy from you to them. And that's also one of the basic ploys of them feeding off you, is the contact feeding and the surface feeding. And then the most intense would be the deep feeding, and then the hardest for them to do would be the long distance. But they also do the ambient feeding, which is feeding off a crowd. So now that we talked about the basic ways, the ways of how psychic vampires, energy vampires, they feed off victims, now let's talk about how to protect ourselves from psychic vampires and their influence. So now that you understand how they feed, and that they physically, energetically feed from our energy, you have to learn how to protect your energy. And there's a number of ways of doing this. I like doing this with gemstones. Labradorite is really good. Black obsidian, black tourmaline, black onyx, selenite, clear quartz, everything that I'm describing in this video. I will of course leave all the information in the description bar of this video, so you guys can keep this in your notes or refer back to it later. So yeah, you can use gemstones to protect your energy. But another way that I like to protect myself from psychic vampirism or energy vampires is simply shielding your energy. And this is done a number of ways, and there's different techniques to do this, but I'm going to teach you some basic ways of how you can do this. So when you are shielding your energy, you are basically you're gonna have to practice this every day, slowly by slowly, so you can get in the habit of doing this. So how you do this is simply you're taking visualization techniques to focus your energy into shielding yourself. And you want to do this when you go to a public event, or even out in public, going to the library, the mall, the movies, because like I said, psychic vampires, they can know that they're doing this, but most of the time they aren't unaware that they're doing this, because a lot of people, they are just typically very empty inside, and they don't understand that they're actually feeding off of us. Like I said, you'll know this by feeling drained afterwards and coming home. And if they keep feeding on you, you're most likely to get very sick, or a headache, or feel very dehydrated, or you just feel nauseous. Like, there's so many different ways, but you just don't feel your best. You feel drained. So one of the techniques I like, shielding techniques, is the orb of white light. So simply, I'll be sitting down here, make sure you're comfortable in a place undisturbed while you're practicing these techniques. And when you're doing the orb of white light, you're literally, you close your eyes at first, and you connect with your breath, your center, and then you want to focus on creating this bubble around you, this bubble of white light, and you want to see white light surrounding this bubble within your aura, all around you, and let it continue to get bigger and expand. The bigger of your shielding techniques in your aura you make it, the better, because when your aura is very close to you, you know, you can only protect so much. Like, it's better to expand it, so it's harder for them to penetrate. So you want to practice making this bubble of white light. You can even make it gold, shimmery, and whatnot, but you want to practice whatever visualization techniques. So there's other techniques you could do. There's the orb of white light. There's the purple pyramid, which is best for transmuting negative energy around a space around you. There's also the mirrored ball, which is another favorite of mine. It's the same technique of creating a bubble around you, but instead of making it white and sparkly and shimmery, your whatever energy penetrates to this bubble will just be reflected off. So if someone's thinking bad thoughts of you or negativity is around you, evil, whatever, it will simply bounce off of your aura. Now, shielding is great for when you want ultimate protection, but there's also different ways that's not so obsolete for protecting your energy. You can create filters when you're creating your bubble around you for shielding techniques. And what I mean by this is that, let's say you go to a social event or whatever, and you want to protect yourself, but you don't want to block off the good energies from getting into your aura, you know? And what I mean by this is maybe you go to church or you're at a drum circle, whatever, and you want to protect yourself from the negative energies, but you don't want to stop yourself from receiving the cosmic divine energies that people are trying to pour into you as well. And one way you can focus is that you can create, again, a bubble around you, but only focus on blocking off the low, dense, negative vibrations off you, and allowing maybe holes in the top for allowing positive light vibrations to come into you. They're the high vibrations, the positive vibrations, so those can seep in, but still keep off and block off the negative ones. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm trying not to make these too long. So we learned about what a psychic vampire is, how do they feed, how to best protect yourself with crystals and shielding techniques. And thank you guys for watching. Feel free to subscribe and like this video. Let me know if this helps you. Everything I mentioned in this video will be in the description box, so you guys can refer to these notes later or write them down for yourselves. I think it's really important for individuals, and especially empaths, to protect yourself against individuals who would try to drain us. So thank you for watching, and blessed be.